Educating, informing, serving. Fact TV, keeping government honest.
You are watching a Fact TV presentation of the Westminster School Board meeting.
Well, it's 6:10 p.m. Apologies for our late start. We'll call the meeting of the Westminster Board to order. We did have a technical problem, which Andy was just apologizing for, beyond our control. But Ricky Adams, our superstar technology director, came in and fixed it, so we're able to start the meeting. The meeting is called to order. Let's do a quick round of introductions just for the public record, starting with Liz.
Hi, I'm Liz Hardy. I'm the principal of Westminster Center School.
Margie Ferry, Westminster Board.
Charlie Hutchison, Westminster Board Vice Chair.
Karen Blanchard, Westminster Board. Cheryl Charles, Westminster Board Chair.
Andy Haas, Superintendent of Schools.
Dean BLC, Westminster Board.
Jim Vazina, Finance.
Nicole Barnett, Admin Assistant to Superintendent and Board Recorder.
Fantastic. Are there any adjustments to the agenda? I think I would add, typically after director's comments, we'll at least refer to the date and time of the next meeting. And I think that the student tuition topic may not need to go into executive session. That would just be, we'll see when we get there. Communications and public comments. Looks like none, but thanks to Fact TV as ever for being here. We appreciate it. Let's take a look at review and, if we can, approve the minutes from May 4th and May 18th. And let's start. This will take a couple of minutes because Nicole, who took the minutes, just had them disappear. And so she had to reconstruct them. And so we'll do them each separately. May 4th was a regular meeting of the Westminster School Board. I can do this kind of quickly to ask everybody's help with it. Administration and attendance, just fix the spelling of Andy's name. The reviewing and approving the minutes from April 6th and April 20th. Charlie, I think it was you who made the motion, probably, to approve the minutes. Do you recall?
No, I'll take credit for the blame either one.
Yeah, I think it was probably. I know that later on it was Teen who made the two motions having to do with Jennifer Perry.
Okay.
I found nothing until we got to the blanks, and then under the resignations and appointments and the guidance situation with Jennifer Perry, there were actually two motions. And the first was a motion made by Teen BLC to approve the proposed one-year leave of absence for Jennifer Perry. So first we approved her one-year leave of absence, and it passed unanimously. And then again, Teen BLC moved that Jennifer Perry be appointed on the recommendation of Liz Hardy, the principal, to be school counselor for 23-24 school year. I think that's the sequence, right? Yeah. And then under the review and approval of policy C15, I'm not sure who made the motion to approve it. It was student conduct and discipline. You were with us remotely.
I was.
Yeah.
I not to throw everything at Charlie, but I kind of recall Charlie making the motion just to go to discussion.
Right.
So I was trying to beat Charlie to making the motion, and he always does it first, so it's probably Charlie.
We're going to say that.
So I think that's correct. Under director's comments, just add a K to hard work at the end. And the meeting adjourned at 7:30 p.m. That's what I saw. Does that make sense to everybody? Yep. So let's entertain a motion to approve the minutes of Thursday, May 4, 2023.
So moved.
I second.
All right.
I don't know right after.
Yeah.
These days.
Right, but it's fun. Yeah. So the minutes, all those in favor, we're all here in person. Please signify. Aye. Any opposed? Okay, May 4 minutes are approved. The May 18 minutes, I apologize because I'm the one who constructed the minutes, and I didn't do a good job of getting director's comments. And Charlie properly made a point by way of email addressing some questions you had about standardized testing and where we are. And I thought, I'm not sure who you sent that to, Charlie.
It's interesting, Nicole, I didn't realize you had originated the thing, but did it make its way to?
I did not update them because I had already sent this out, but I can go back and
I see.
update them.
I think I'd, like to entertain a motion to approve the minutes of Wednesday, May 18th, a special meeting of the board, to include a documentation of Director Hutchison's comments that evening. I'd like to see those attached.
So moved.
Okay, Charlie moved.
Second, no, I don't think we even need a second.
Right, we don't.
Darn it.
We don't. That's kind of fun. But what he did was make the comments that he made that night. So this would simply
Just
go under
okay.
Director's comments, and it's just raising the question about the 75% of kids not at proficiency, and really what does that mean? Help us understand it more fully. So that's what that is about. So with that, motion on the floor by Charlie. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, passed unanimously. That's done. And now it is time for the reports, and I think, Mr. Vazina, you're first.
Okay.
The finance report.
Thank you. I got this in here.
Is this the one? Yes, yeah.
Is there a good matchup, Greg?
I would say what goes along with this, I mean, it shows you have a balance still of $440,000. In addition, you have on the last page, which is your revenue page, page 8, you have $35,700 of tuition money over and above the revenue. So, we'll see how the encumberment goes, but just round numbers, it looks like you could approach $500,000 as a surplus amount. Keeping in mind, I mean, there's still a lot of moving parts in this because you've got about $8,000 of subs that have to go back into this budget. It's residing in the SU budget right now. So, and I think there are some large ESSER projects that are starting and going on, and I don't know if they'll require any support of district monies as well. But I think, I wish all entities were in this good of shape for, because, and I will say this, we all are careful with taxpayer money, of course. I mean, that almost goes without saying. But when you start to get to the point where you're rubbing nickels together
Right.
to make it and break it, sometimes it's not where you want to be because you don't operate as efficiently, and it's just I certainly would always be careful, but I think you're much better off having some room in case of an emergency, in case of stuff that we always don't foresee. So,
Right, it would be like any budget,
yes.
home budget.
Yeah. So I don't know if you have any questions per se. We've got 20 some odd days left and remaining. So, we're starting to hopefully get to the point where we'll be closing out the open purchase orders. Exceptionally difficult this year because we are going on to a new system. And again, I can only say I apologize, but what happens is everybody says, look, we want to get set up for next year. We want to pump in our new purchase orders and get ready and get this stuff on order. And again, this year, I mean, it's a hiccup because we've got to get all of the new orders onto the new system. So I just say it's not, I would rather certainly have everybody start to integrate into the new system now, but we're not there.
And we need to make sure at the start of the year payroll flows. So that needs to be the business office main priority, so,
Yeah.
you know, so, and that's where his team has been working, and so I think, you know, with some purchase orders, we're gonna ask schools to hold off until like the 15th, you know, before inundating the business office with new purchase orders, so.
Yes.
Gets us a run through.
Yeah, does the district have a time where teachers, it's like cut off?
That's already passed.
That's
yeah.
passed, yeah.
Yeah.
And what was that question, please?
Just if there's a point at which you can no longer put like purchase orders in during the
So
year.
for like supplies, for classroom supplies, so Jim sets a date, May something,
Yeah.
and so we stop taking purchase orders at that time so that they can work through and close out the books. But then, let's say Liz wants to order new chairs and she's gonna use FY24 money, which starts July 1. A lot of times people are like, they've already got it ready to go for July 1, so they can submit it, so the business office processes those orders right away, so there's no delays in getting those things. This year, we're gonna have to delay that. We just can't start on July 1 with those purchase orders. We're gonna have to wait a little bit of time, because we gotta get payroll. Make sure payroll's running correct.
How long, do you think, Jim?
This is kind of difficult this year because on June 19th, we've got the preliminary audit for this year as well going on. So, you know, we're trying to close out as quickly as we can for this year, but obviously, I mean, we've got 2 payrolls for this month, and those have to be completed. But I think everybody's vested and ready to jump in the game. You know, and I will say this, I mean, the summertime certainly is the busiest, absolutely critical time for the SU office. I mean, that's when all hands are on deck. So we're cautiously optimistic.
I have a very basic and simplistic question. In these first few lines, you used the word spending, but does that mean the budget we passed? Is that the word it means? Like the first slide, education spending 4,618,000. That's not money we've spent, that's money we've been given to spend. Is that correct?
We're about to, what page?
Oh, page 8,
Last
big
page,
part,
this one,
on the revenue page. What does education spending mean here? Does that mean the budget that we passed with the town?
The education spending,
Yeah, what is that money?
I mean, the adopted budget, I'm looking on page 1, Charlie.
Well, okay, they're okay.
He's on page 8.
I'm on page 8,
The
Okay.
education
Oh, sorry.
spending-
That was
Sorry.
my fault.
The revenue piece.
yeah.
Revenue piece is a lot more complex. But the educational spending is what budget you have adopted and passed by the voters.
I see. So in plain language, I would prefer the word budget there, not spending, because it just, it tells me what it is.
Where it gets really complex is because I also include the high school piece.
Uh-huh.
And this is not easy to integrate in there. It just, especially in the calculation for taxation. But I've got something that works now, and so it is what the voters really have adopted.
I see. And the reason the second line is the same as the first is because there was no offset, presumably.
Right,
So,
right. Next year, you'll have some money in that
yeah, I see.
that line.
And again, why do we have 36 grand left over in tuition? Or is it left over, or is it?
That tuition money is something that you charged the Rockingham School District for students that were attending here. So there were I think there were 2 students that attended here.
Uh-huh.
Rockingham paid you $35,700.
I see. Okay.
So it's a positive revenue for you.
Margie, did you have a question on this?
No.
I do have some questions. I was looking today, Liz, at the document, the fabulous document that you prepared for us that shows all these anticipated requests and such. So it's got the ideas related to the security enhancements here and the nature-based learning and all of that. But you've also got a part of the spreadsheet that refers to using the 23 surplus.
Right.
Money, the 400,000 or so. Jim had recommended that you have a list like that, and you do.
Yes.
That's in that spreadsheet right now. My question has to do with when can she make a decision to encumber those monies based on what you said about no other purchase orders?
I have actually. I just went ahead and purchased. And that was for me. I probably shouldn't have included it in that spreadsheet because after that conversation at that board meeting where Jim said, you have money, I went to the staff and I said, are there things that we can purchase this year that you, and we did.
A stand-up desk is one of them.
Right, a stand-up desk, exactly, some flexible seating. We got different, just a variety of things that we want, like things to help with students with OT support. A lot of flexible seating, I can't think off the top of my head, but maybe a kidney table for this room. There was a variety of things, and we just purchased them. And then I made that list to help myself tell me who responded with things that they wanted.
Well, I think it's important, Andy and I had a brief conversation today, and I think it was based on a conversation you and Jim have had as well. Given that that you're anticipating being able to spend a surplus, I think it's really important that you document it the way that you did, and that you let the board know that, and you're working to make sure you don't overspend.
Right.
You've only incurred expenses based on what you anticipate realistically.
Yeah.
So all of that, is appropriate in your leadership role. I just wanted to bring that out for our discussion here.
Thanks.
Now, and then Liz, when did that happen?
We had a board meeting a couple months ago where you reviewed the budget
Yeah.
and you said, so if you need to purchase things, I had money to do so. We were in a position in the budget where there would be money so that if I needed some stools or a stand-up desk, I had flexibility to do that. And so I put it out to my staff saying, are there things that your classroom could use? We bought, I think, we needed some adult-sized cross-country ski boots because we have some sixth graders with adult-sized feet. So we purchased those. And I just added it to the spreadsheet that I created that has the Article 1 and the different purchasing that we'll be doing.
And that was before your cutoff.
I purchased it before the PO
And
cutoff.
that's what I'm saying,
Yeah.
is those items should already be in here, included.
They're reflected in here already.
So it doesn't affect your balance.
So we still have 450,000 or so.
Yes.
And this wasn't that much either that you spent, it was less than 4,000.
It's funny what teachers wanted. It's like, can I have pencil grips? I'm like, you could have had pencil grips,
All year.
Yeah.
It wasn't any large, major
Correct.
purchases.
No.
And they were things needed for students and stuff of that nature. I think part of our conversation was like, Liz, if it was like all of a sudden you needed to re-outfit a whole classroom, like those are the kind of things you'd wanna just make sure the board is like, we need $20,000 to
Right, of
redo
course.
this or to do something, or if for some reason, we hadn't anticipated this coming summer, we needed to paint the hallway and we needed to go out and purchase thousands of dollars of paint, possibly, type of thing, and bring people in to do the painting. To me, it's more the unanticipated thing, so.
So we're saying actually that what Liz had requested to be spent has already been spent, it's reflected here.
Yeah.
So we may be looking at then another
An additional
surplus.
surplus.
And you had also recommended pre-purchasing fuel oil. I don't know that that's happened.
I'm not sure. No. We also had a second oil tank installed. And that would need to be filled, right? And So can we do that this year?
Yeah, as of 7/1, we should be okay. And the only reason I say that is, I think your price is going to be around $2.90, somewhere in there. So it's probably $1 something, $1.20 less per gallon.
Build that oil tank.
That, we haven't got a firm price, but I expect to have that in that range. So you may still, filling up that other tank may not even
Touch
blink
much.
with the cost.
Can we do that out of the FY '23 budget?
The only, my only hesitation is, I think we've consumed, in total, because we bought like 110,000 gallons, I believe, in total for everyone, and I think we've used that. So it really, right now, with using all of that we've agreed to, it puts you out to the street price, and I don't know what the street price is running right now.
Oh, yeah, that's it, yeah.
Oh, we purchased oil as an SU?
What's that?
We purchased it as an SU?
Yes.
Yeah,
Oh,
it does,
okay.
special rate, right,
Yeah.
I think the town does too.
Okay.
So you may be, I mean, you still may be better off. 7/1 will have the new contract in place, and it'll be a lower
That's a good
amount.
price, less than $3.
Right,
Yeah.
I'm just wondering with the extra money, I mean, we have $400,000.
Yep.
Which I'm just surprised because we had so many unexpected tuition 7th and 8th graders that I'm surprised. And you could see that in the tuition line, right?
Sure
We're
can.
$157,000 over.
We got 2 tuitions.
Right,
Maybe
true.
that was part of it.
True. I'm just surprised that there's so much. I'm wondering why there's such a.
And I will say this, you know, I've said this, the SU budget is even worse. You can look at that bottom line, really, there was a lot of movement in stuff this year. And I mean, just one of the things that didn't align, like the nursing salary, it was with a different object code than I used. And so it wasn't always aligned perfectly with stuff. But I will say that, I mean, you certainly will have some excess next year as well. But as long as, I just think in some ways you're much better off having a little spare room, because keeping in mind that Esser paid, I want to say $38,000 for a pump, circulator pump that went and had to be set up, and I think there's been some other larger stuff. And that's my experience, is that school districts, we don't know how bad the winter's going to be next year, what issues we're going to get into. You know, the part may break on the wood-fired boiler. It's nice to have a little wiggle room anyways.
So you just may want to spend even more time with it to try to figure out how we did as well as we're doing.
Yeah.
Especially as we think about going into budget season.
Yeah, I just don't want to be irresponsible,
Right.
you know, if it's coming out so excess. Yeah, so, thank you, yeah.
So any more questions for Jim?
I just have a clarification question. You gave out a document a few weeks ago, Jim, that I had a question about, and I didn't call you because I've heard so much about how I shouldn't call you and ask you about things. Should it have gone through to Andy? It was a small thing about, you know, similar to the question I just asked you just now.
No, just pick up the phone or email, whichever works for you,
Okay,
anytime. I'm there for you.
thank you, as long as that's okay with the board.
Just showing you this one.
This is this one, yeah.
Yeah.
There's something on here. We don't have to deal with it now, but I will.
Yeah, I mean, I think that they're little quick things, you know, trying to be
Yeah.
respectful of, and I appreciate, you know, his time and you being respectful. I mean, if it's something that it's gonna be like looking for some deep information and stuff, you know, I'd appreciate it, you know, include me or that we go through Cheryl so that we, because it might be a question everybody has, and if it's like, hey, I don't understand, what's that spending? Right, like, that's a quick answer, right? And, but if it's like, could you please explain the formula for how we got to
Most of my
whatever?
simple questions are pretty simple.
Yeah.
Thank you, I will call you.
Well, thank you both. I think we're trying to get more coherent about these kinds of
Yeah, no,
procedures.
you're right.
And we respect people's
Yep.
time. So thank you for asking. I think you've got clear guidance on that one.
And if I do answer anything, I always try to certainly copy Andy and Cheryl, just for information, not that, just so they know what questions are being asked as well.
Okay, good. So Jim, I don't know that there's anything else here that you need to be here for.
Okay,
tonight.
all right, well, thank you.
Thank you so much, Jim.
Thank you.
All right.
Drive safe.
Thank you.
Principals report.
Yes. For the past 30 days, our average daily attendance has been 94.8, so it's stayed pretty steady as pink eyes have to the school. An update, this year I've been updating on the work we've done with focus schools, and our instructional leadership team and our staff decided on our targeted learning focus, which will be, we've landed on the targeted learning focus of we'll commit to building comprehension through intentional lesson structure, teacher language, and reflective practices. The staff had a lot of fun creating a slogan that we're going to commit to, which is WCS, where we wonder, create, and share. We thought that embodied our focus. And our next steps will be to work as a staff to create a document outlining, like a one-page document outlining what teacher language looks like, what lesson structure looks like, and reflective practices look like and sound like across all settings in the building. More to come on that, I'll update you as we go. Our spring concert was last Thursday. It was wonderful production with lots of family and friends attending, and that was the last concert of the year. We have our visiting artist this week, Mark Ragnese. He's been meeting with all students in grade K through 6, building a community art piece that will be displayed right outside the garden. So the structure is pretty much there. If you look at this week's newsletter, it really highlights the work. There was fabric, we dyed fabric, they stamped fabric, they built a structure out of sticks that'll be a wishing house, and so on their little flags that'll be tied on, and really is going to look so nice. Next week, thanks to our PTO, we will host Troy Wonderly for the circus residency. So he will meet with each class multiple times and learning a variety of circus skills, and we'll be putting on a performance for family and friends Friday, June 9th at 1:30 in the afternoon. 6th grade success night will take place Wednesday, June 14th at 6 o'clock. This will be a short event taking place out by the garden as it has past couple of years to commemorate the exiting of our 6th graders as they move on to middle school. Our field day will be June 12th, and students will go through a variety of outdoor activities, including face painting, frisbee, musical games, relay races, hula hoops. And we'll also have our tradition of welcoming the Westminster Fire Department for the hose spray, so that'll be really great. Summer program, as you know, we will host the summer program, and it'll begin on July 5th through August 4th. It'll run 8 to 4, and students will be heading to the Edgar Main Springfield Weekly, and they'll be heading on a field trip each Friday. And we look forward to having lots of kids in here. One event we had a few times this spring, and I'm hoping to make it more of a permanent thing next year, was breakfast and books. So we have parent engagement funds to spend, and I put it out to staff if classrooms were interested in hosting. So I had 4th grade, 3rd grade, and kindergarten will be next Friday. They display student work, parents come in just 7:45 to 8:15, 8:30. We have breakfast, and everyone leaves with a book. So it's really a nice, intimate setting to see student work, talk to teachers, talk to staff, see kids, see families. It's been really great. So I'm hoping that it's more of a organized earlier in the year so teachers have more time to plan and organize. And the roof project at the West has begun. They've been at Studio Y since last week, and it looks, I mean, I think it looks pretty much complete, but I am not a roofer, so I'm sure it's not totally done, but it looks fantastic if you have a chance to drive by.
Great.
Yeah,
So
And
is UHD.
except the ERU.
ERU.
Yeah,
yeah,
right,
ERU.
that work will happen this summer, yes. And then the Westminster roofing, the center school roofing will happen this summer, end of June. Right? You need pictures of the,
Just pictures.
of the roof in the West? Okay, let me make myself a note. Any questions?
The only thing I want to add is that my neighbor was Rob Merman, and Rob had the desire to start a circus. And he was the person who started Circus Marcus.
Oh,
He had Rufus, he had his dog in the circus when he was still alive. And so Todd, it's just, I was thinking about the kids and understanding that having a dream can happen,
right.
you know? And maybe Todd can talk a little bit about that. Do you know what I mean? A little bit about the history and how sort of that kind of dreaming can produce something like that.
That's awesome.
That's a little.
I do want to say I was so impressed by Miss S being able to run that concert with her voice gone. It was like
Yes.
really great that she was able to do that. Miss S is the music teacher, but she's unable to speak, but she ran the whole concert.
Yes,
Right
she's
now.
been on vocal
Yeah.
rest all week, so she hasn't been in all week, and she'll be doing half days next week.
Yeah.
Because she was trying to do vocal rest and teaching, and this is still happening, please stop coming.
Yeah.
Yeah, so she's,
It always goes off every night, every time we have a
It's one,
board meeting here.
it's one of the things.
Also, like, the kids are loving the art what Mark is doing with them. They come home with dirty dyed hands and they're
Oh,
just
yeah.
like talking about the wishes they're making. It's really a good opportunity. They're loving it.
so he's great.
And two comments from me. I love that the parent-teacher group is who has funded both of these things, Troy as well as that artist project, so that's great. Please extend our thanks to them for that. And then secondly, as you know, was able to go to the Breakfast and Books in the fourth grade class. And one of my observations about it was how calm the classroom was. Even though there were so many parents there and the children were animated and sharing what they're doing, it was just a really positive environment. And it was great to see you, Liz, and others of the staff coming in to talk to various of the children. So very well done.
Yeah, great. I'll let you know.
Okay, anything else for Liz?
That is it for me.
All right, next question. Do we have any resignations or appointments?
Not yet.
Okay.
Hopefully soon. Yes.
We put the topic of standardized testing on the agenda in part because of your director's comments. I've been in touch with Deb Cardane. She's not able to come tonight, but she will come to our next regularly scheduled school board meeting. I think she's checked with you about that, which is July 6th. So, and she, I don't think was able to, she's not able to send us any more today, to my knowledge. So we might postpone that discussion until she can be here with us. What's that, unless you have other things you want to raise.
Only that, there was an interesting article about improvements in reading scores in Mississippi today in the Times by Nick Kristof. If you like, I'll send it around to everybody.
Sure.
Apparently, everybody used to say God bless Mississippi because they're always worse than us. But now Mississippi has leapfrogged ahead of
Yeah, they have.
half the states in their reading scores.
Yeah, that's great. You want to make some comments, Ken?
I just want to, some of the things that we are working on across CSU, we're heavily invested in with the Stern Center in a program called Lead to Read. And it really deals with the science of reading and is more about educating educators on how to teach reading as opposed to here's a program, go teach, or follow the program. Because reading is so complex that we want, students to learn that way. And so in that same vein with mathematics, we're working with All Learners Network on a very similar type of thing with a coaching model
where they're working directly with our teachers. So we're really trying to take that approach of addressing that issue. We're also starting to have a conversation around structured literacy classrooms. And this is for students who are really continue to struggle. So after you've done all that and they continue to struggle, you know, how do we start building some really structured literacy? And I don't know, Nina knew a little bit. I mean, as we were having the conversation, you know, math came up and the idea of like a structured math class. So if you can identify like certain students who are really struggling, and then you add in on top of everything else, more work for, you know, not more work, but more programming for them to really address those. In some of the other districts that we've seen do it, they've reduced their special ed numbers in double digits.
With the coaching, you think is that the?
With the structured courses, with the
Okay.
coaching, with this, all of that, it's not just one approach, it's couple breaths. I don't know whose hand went up first.
I'm just curious, what are all the categories that SBAC, what are the categories on the SBAC?
So, now we move to BTCAP, but it's still the
whatever,
same,
yeah.
right.
Mhm.
It's
Math?
math and literacy, and then fifth grade has a science, which is basically a literacy.
Which is
science, it's a
literacy.
reading.
So,
Test.
and is science, I mean, is the literacy, are they saying, oh, wait, here's the math one. ELA, is that?
Yeah,
That's literacy.
literacy.
Yeah.
English language arts.
Okay, okay, so just 3 categories,
Right.
okay.
Let's go to pick up on what Andy said, which is great. The other concern I have is the other 50% who have no obvious reason why they're not reading, because they don't have a special need, they don't have any organic challenge, and yet they're not meeting grade proficiency. So I'd be very interested, what is the research about why that middle group is lagging and not learning with the top 25 who just take it up and.
Yeah, so I can't speak to that without doing the
No, obviously not.
you know, I mean, anecdotally, you know, I think that a lot of it has to do with early immersion in reading. When we're talking about when you've got your kids at home and they're infants, and how much reading are you doing? And even if a child, you know, you're reading to a child at first when they can't even follow around, but you're reading to them and constantly reading, and then as they're getting older, they're following along in that book and you're still reading to them. And so that practice as parents is, you know, again, I can't tell you this research is that, but my remembrance of everything that's when that really solidifies for kids, is that early on, is that reading has to happen. And this is what's really destroyed.
If it's really true that 50% of the kids in the district aren't getting that, or 75% aren't getting that, then we've got a huge problem beyond anything we do in the budget.
And it's unique to our district.
Well, no, it's not, so that, sorry,
No.
so it's not, it is a national problem. But you also have to understand, a test is a one-time showing of a student's ability. And how much a student puts into a test has a lot to do with it.
Yeah,
And so, you know, there's been research on incentives and you know, all that stuff on how to get kids to really understand. Some of these tests, the way they're written, they don't even relate back to what they're taught, right? Like you're reading things, and so it's your application of your learn, and then you're taking now a test on this. So the student's supposed to read on a computer. We still don't always have kids read on computers because we value print books, and I value print books. So there's that piece of it. I remember when my own son was taking the NWEA or the MAPS test as a first grader or kindergartner, and he scored extremely low in the area of measurement. And the teacher
hadn't really gotten, in that school, gotten a lot of training on being able to explain RIT scores, and I knew a lot about it, much more than I even know now. And I was explaining to her, and I said, he doesn't understand measurement? Because we did that at home all the time. And so she said, yeah. And I said, well, what do they have to do for the test? And she said, well, they have to take the mouse.
Yeah.
And I said, stop, because I knew my son had never been taught how to use a mouse. So I went home and I taught my son how to use a mouse, and he scored in the 99th percentile the next time. So some of that is.
Unfortunately, all this is anecdotal, so
Yeah.
I just wonder at some point, what research has there been on this sort of lacuna in the middle?
Yeah.
About what's the problem? Did COVID really increase that, or
Yes.
has it, what was the situation pre-COVID?
I mean, it's undoubtable that COVID increased the kids' rate, like the decreased like kids' rate of proficiency in reading. It's like inevitable. Kids were not at school, and kids need to be at school to learn. So that was a good study of the entire country.
Do we have the numbers for pre-COVID? Not now, but do we have them somewhere?
I'm sure they're somewhere, but I mean, I'm sure they were presented to the board at some point, and so they're probably in the things from that. I mean, there's also another thing to think about is like we know a lot more now about how kids learn to read. And we're testing everyone now, whereas, I mean, when we were young, kids who struggled to learn to read were often just not, they were just taught in a different classroom, so it looks more apparent now, whereas we know like there are ways to get everyone to read now, not just the kids who are easiest to teach to read, but it takes a lot of, there's a lot of nuance to it, and there's a lot of like, what exactly is it like a phonemic awareness issue, is it a phonological, there's a lot of components you have to look at, and that's what I think the district is working on, figuring out like, where is the struggle and how can we fill those gaps? And then there are kids who have never been read to before they enter kindergarten. So some kids are already 5 years, they've had 5 years of exposure, and some kids have had 0.
Yes.
Go ahead, Karen, keep going.
Well, some decades ago in Brattleboro, they got a grant to work with parents and children about parents learning how to help their children read, because some parents didn't have that themselves. So it would be interesting to me to think about grants or something like that to help parents, and and it was for little ones and parents working, they did it at night, they did it at different times, right? So it's just something to consider in supporting what you were describing, because the advantage that kids have when they've been read to is different than for kids who haven't been.
Because probably the parents are also, they're not reading to their kids.
Well, sometimes it's true, and sometimes it has to do with access, and also.
Some parents are working, right?
Yeah, they're working.
Yeah.
Well, the other thing that I want to say is that I hear what everybody's saying. Okay, our reading is behind, our COVID happened and this and that, and we had the Fountas and Pinnell, and we do this. But the fact still remains when you look at just the data that we're 10 points below in every category in every grade in our district. And I think that is concerning. That's not like a COVID thing, or if it is a COVID thing, it's somehow related to maybe a socioeconomic thing, like maybe COVID does hit if it's true that our district is a lower socioeconomic district. I don't know that that's true, I'm just saying that's been postulated. And so, like, I really do think that we should look at this data and not just say like, oh, it was COVID, or this is just a test, one test in time. Why is it that we're testing lower? I think we need to figure out a few reasons why we are testing lower on each category. Why is that? I mean, it seems like an overarching thing.
Yeah, I just wanted to say two things that kind of tail off what Andy and team were saying as far as what we are doing, right? Because the scores are like, they're bad, it's not good.
Yeah.
So I know that we have worked this year to pilot a core phonics program to address all the phonics, and we have been using diagnostic assessments as far as like the DIBELS, which I feel like you've heard about, and that will be K-6 next year. Like it's only been K-2 this year, so then we're able to get back into data sheets. I think we laid off data sheets during COVID because COVID teaching, when you talk about data during COVID, it was like, am I testing what they supposedly learned remotely? Like, it just didn't quite make sense. So we're able to get back into tracking our data on data sheets and giving the DIBELS, and then looking through like oral reading fluency, nonsense reading fluency, short vowels, long vowels, digraphs, and seeing where the breakdown is. And then seeing that over the year and seeing the growth in that. So if you look at my K2 data sheets, it's pretty impressive that they have grown. Like if you look at the kindergarten, like letter naming, you look in the fall, it is all red. You know, kids did not know their letters. And you look at it now, it's basically all green. So you're seeing kids learning, it might not be reflected on MAP yet, but I think that there are steps being taken to move in the right direction, where we can learn. And I think in the point to teamwork, like not all kids were tested. Now all kids are tested, right? I wonder what would it look like in the 80s if every child was tested the way, just the readers were tested.
Was DIBELS not going on, I mean, was DIBELS happening at other schools during COVID?
No.
So a couple, I think a couple of, but to go back, and I can only go back 5 years, and when I stepped into the district, there was a practice of not every student getting core instruction from their classroom teacher, very broad stroke across our district. So if you were identified as a struggling reader, when it was reading time, you might have left the classroom to go get intervention. So you weren't getting your core instruction, that intervention became your core instruction. So what we knew under an MTSS or multi-tiered system of support is that students should get that first core instruction in their classroom. If they need addition on top of core instruction, then that's when it should be provided. So we made a very intentional shift last year to say, we're going to start moving in that direction. And so there's building up our classroom teachers to make sure that they have the instructional tools and practices to be able to provide that core instruction to all students. We identified pre-pandemic that students had phonemic awareness issues and we needed to address those through special education. We identified them because that was what we were seeing kids being referred for reasons. And so we intentionally began to work with the Student Center pre-pandemic through special education to start teaching our special educators about the science of reading. Pandemic slowed us all down, for those purposes. But then we began, trying to snowball it and move very quickly. Fontes and Pinnell, we knew where the holes were. There's good parts of Fontes and Pinnell. We will continue on using Fontes and Pinnell, some base layers of it. But we know that there are certain parts that need to happen. I think at the all board meeting where Deb and, Kate Kane and Ms. Pickering were pointing out in that case study, that's the kind of depth we're going into now for a student to look at, really where's that student. If you looked at that student's MAP scores, just as Liz said, they don't show the big reflection, but we can see we are now targeting that. Pre-pandemic, our district did not use DIBELS. We were doing a few screeners on kids, but again, the classroom teachers just didn't have the full tools to do that. And so we've been building that, and that's what's been really, I think, the real positive this year is the data teams that have gotten off the ground and are meeting and they're able to identify this stuff. And then working with the teachers to then talk about instructional practices so that they feel comfortable to do what they do well. So
Yeah, I mean, I see that there's like a lot of people looking at the very specific things and addressing some of these very specific things. I think I just need to hear that you guys see what I'm seeing.
Oh, yeah.
That in every category, we're very low, like we're 10 points below, and
Yep.
that's a concern. I need to like hear you say that you see that it's across the board, not just in reading, not just this, all of it is low, and that we can, that, like, I need to hear that, because what I'm hearing is like, well, we're doing this. I know, but it's across the whole board. Like, that's frustrating to me. It's frustrating to see that and not hear, like, yeah, that's concerning. I need to hear that somebody is trying to, like, is it Deb's job? Is that Deb's job to look at try to figure out the overarching sort of?
But everything I just explained
Yes.
is because we looked at the data and went, oh
5
my
years
gosh,
ago?
we need to do something.
Right.
No, well, I can tell you that even before I started in this district, when Mr. Kibbe showed me some data, I said, wow, and specifically said, what's happening in Westminster?
Uh-huh.
Because the data that he was showing me was showing a high referral rate to special education. And
Yes.
so I knew walking in here that there was an issue, that I don't know what, I don't have the answer for why,
Yeah.
but for some reason, there was already, 5 years ago, kids were struggling. And so that's not it is what it is, but when we looked at it and we said, what's going on? One of the things you don't want to do is just say, okay, let's throw the kitchen sink at everything. You want to be very, prescriptive about what we're trying to do
Yes.
to improve things.
Yes.
The foundation of, if kids don't know how to read, every single test score is going to be low.
Correct. Okay.
So that's why we're focused, that's why we talk about reading a lot, because we know if kids can't read, they can take a science test and it's not, they can know, you can give them the science stuff and they can make rockets go, do all that stuff. But if you ask them to read a text and do something and they can't understand it,
Uh-huh.
they're not going to be able to. So our focus was, let's read mathematics. Reading is a component of mathematics, unfortunately, too, because, if you look at probably word, problems, that
Yes.
right? So that's why we focus a lot on reading, but then the mathematics piece. And, we know that if we can shore that piece up, we believe that that's what the rest is going to follow.
Uh-huh. Okay.
But yes, did we all look at the data and go, oh my gosh, we need to do something? Yes.
Okay.
But we also know doing things quickly is not the right way to go, because you can end up spending a lot of money on programming that is not effective.
I just wanted to say one thing, yes, we are seeing what you're seeing. I think COVID has a role in our scores, but I don't think, right now we're building capacity in our teachers through the what is it?
Learn to read.
Learn to read. There's something else, let's
There is
go learn
Let's
that's
Go-
on my
Let's
head,
Go
sorry. Learn.
Lead to read.
Lead to read, thank you. So that is building capacity in teachers, teaching teachers how children read and how that works. And during COVID, the stress level in teachers to learn how to manage the remote, the in-person, the distance, like all of the components, it was like a 2-year gap where teachers were not really available for very good reason to take on new content.
Sure.
So it's really this year diving back into that. And I just wanted to say that.
Charlie?
That's good, yeah. I just want to pick up on the Dibbles thing, which sounds very great. You've got to expand it to all 6 grades. Hang on. So you get the data and it turns out that half of the 5th grade doesn't know the long A sound or something, or who knows what all the things are. But all over the place there are deficits, because we've got 75% of the kids who are not there yet. what changes in the curriculum or the day itself
Yes.
have to happen when you find you've got a lot of kids who don't have basic skills?
Right, so it depends, right? If it's basically your whole class, then you're teaching your whole class long A. If it's a small component, then you're using the structure of a literacy workshop and you're having small group instruction, so those students are getting the targeted skill that they need. So when Andy talks about like, there are good things about Fountains of Pinnell, small group instruction is one of them, right? So having opportunities for kids to learn specific skills in a small group is a structure within Fountains of Pinnell that is good. Or the read aloud, they had interactive read alouds, that's great. If you're reading books to children and interacting with language, that's wonderful. They didn't have decodable text, that's not good.
As well about the mechanics of this, we don't have to go too far in this, but once you get to lots of small groups, then you're using pairs to work with presumably small groups, or is there going to be enough trained staff to deal with all these small groups?
There will be enough trained staff to deal with the small groups. The direct instruction is coming from the certified teacher.
Yeah.
So we don't have general paras.
So some of it also, and this is where I talk about like the tools, the instructional tools for teachers. Not every teacher knows how to run the workshop model, the literacy workshop model. And so when you talk about it, sometimes teachers, you say, oh, we need pairs then to run all these things. Done effectively, kids can actually be in their own little circles doing their own work and not need, because if they're given the right direction and they're taught how to do it, and then the teacher can be providing the direct instruction while students are doing other things, and you rotate around so everyone gets it. And you don't need a para for every group to keep kids, and I'm talking as young as kindergartners, because I've seen it happen.
Yeah, you should see our kindergarten readers workshop, it's pretty impressive.
And that was a piece I was gonna say, is that there might be an opportunity for the board or members of the board to come in and see how the instructional practice is going on. Because sometimes seeing it is a lot more fruitful than us trying to explain it all the time. So.
And also, a lot of those pieces of instruction, they're not like, it's not like you're spending 45 minutes doing long A with a kid. You're doing like quick hits of extra instruction that kids need that are really targeted so that your time is better spent in a more targeted way.
What do you do, Tina? You're a math coach.
Yeah.
Are you doing this for math? Like, are
You know what I did today? I did data
math?
meetings all day today. I've talked about testing all day today, actually.
What do you mean? So
In terms of,
Like, are we doing this in math too?
they have a coach from All Learners Network, which is like very well respected in the state. A lot of the people who run the All Learners Network are also affiliated with VMI, which is the Vermont Mathematics Initiative, and OGAP, which is another mathematical training thing. They have a coach from there talking about your
Erin
stuff.
Alder,
She's
yeah.
So you have all the same
Yeah, she
resources
comes in.
for math as you do for, like, the same
Yeah,
kinds
we
of
have interventionists
targeted-
for math, we
Okay.
have what's
So I
called,
think we're gonna need to bring this to a close pretty
Yeah.
quickly. Go ahead, the list.
I was just gonna mention that we have what's called the PNOA, the Primary Numbers and Operations Assessment, right?
You're right.
For K
I
two,
can
and that is
say it
like
by heart
the
too,
dibbles
yeah.
of math.
Okay.
I
And
think
there
there's,
is ENOA.
yeah, there's some looking for ones in the upper grades, but in the younger grades, it's like the foundation of what kids need to know. It's a
Yes.
really excellent diagnostic
Yes.
assessment.
And the last thing I just add to close it up is, in the past, we've always had a reading or a literacy coach for the SU. That person retired this year, and so we repurposed or reimagined that position and turned it into an instructional coach. And so now we went out and we'll be looking or bringing, probably to the SU board soon, a candidate who has proven methods in how to instruct students. Doesn't matter what the subject matter is, right? So they're versed in many different areas, so we're not just targeting. So, yeah, we are looking at expanding how we can work with students in all those areas to try and improve all those areas.
Cool. So thanks, everybody. To be continued, because Debbie is gonna come and join us, you know. A couple of just observations from me to add to our thinking, to close this subject if I may. First, Andy has been able to participate in a really helpful way in this conversation. He and I talked earlier today and we agreed that he wouldn't do his normal superintendent reports at our Westminster meetings because he does that once a month for the supervisory union. Anytime we have questions about what's applicable or of concern in Westminster, he will respond to those, but it just didn't seem fruitful to repeat the same report essentially that he does in every, once at the issue is plenty. But isn't it delightful to have him be able just to engage in the substance as has happened tonight? So thank you.
I appreciate it. I don't think I do injustice as Deb does, and so when she's here, I think it'll be
Right.
very true.
Well, I don't know what does.
I heard that, I know that, I just don't respond. See, I just,
No, but she is so.
the cat is out of that bag.
Cat is
The
out.
cat is out of that bag.
Deb is unbelievably knowledgeable.
So-
She's really good, yeah.
So
I
another-
have some specific questions for her.
So maybe we're not focusing on this completely. These were SU scores.
Right.
And in years past, we have seen Westminster scores. You're suggesting to us, although we've not seen them yet as a board, that you're concerned and that they are down here. I will say in the time that I've been on this board, it used to be the case when I looked at the state data that Westminster scored as well or better than any other districts on average than the overall state. I mean, so we were not as low as we're showing up to be right now. So we want to know more about it. The data point about kids going into special ed and the referrals, I need to know more about that. There's another limitation to add to everything, and I remember this from starting with Chris Kibbe. The ways in which the state changes the means by which we measure kids happens over and over, and we don't have any reliability in being able to compare. So that's an issue too.
Yeah.
What is great is the depth in which our current leadership is going into this and trying to figure out, at every building level, you're doing it here, Liz, and you're, really establishing this at the SU level and throughout. So thank you. And we all want to keep asking these hard questions. We all want to understand it. Yes, it's incredibly serious.
And I would just say, if there are specific questions you're hoping Deb can answer,
I sent them already.
well, I was just gonna say,
You
that's.
sent them directly to her?
No. To you.
Oh, great.
Yeah.
You sent those on?
No.
Because it's helpful to have some, I know that
Thank you.
we
I'll
might,
text them.
it might come up with new questions, but it's better for us to at least be able to try and answer them, have the answers for you, so we don't have to say, oh, we'll get back to you, which
Yeah.
is another month behind, so I mean, that's, so
As
I
long as
appreciate
people
that.
give
Thank
them
you.
to Cheryl, for Cheryl to be.
Well,
You can send them to me also,
Or you.
but I'll get them to Deb.
Yeah.
I do want to say too, this is not so much about testing, but I worked in the school for a year, and the teachers really in the school really value childhood, and they really value like children's learning and childhood. So I think that's important to note. Like they're concerned about kids' test scores. They also really care about them as people and as children, and so it's nice that like they're going to do this really targeted work, but they still see kids as like important, like individual beings, and I think that's an important piece.
Thank you, that's absolutely correct. Well, thanks everybody for a robust discussion. So the next set of topics are all about the construction projects, the capital improvements, and the outdoor learning. I think one specific.
Were you gonna move 7C?
Oh, I'm so sorry, I missed it. Yeah, thank you. Should we do the student tuition piece? And I pulled out the policy that Westminster passed, and you know that it says here that, where is it? Has to do with the staff person, help me,
It's at the very bottom.
yeah, it should be right here. Anyway, it just says that a staff person has the tuition waived. Yeah, thank you. Oh, that's it. Any non-resident student whose parent or guardian works at the Westminster Center School shall be automatically granted admission to the Westminster School, subject to space available with a written request to the Westminster School Board. You have submitted a written request. It came to us for this meeting. and the transfer of tuition from the student's town of residence, which is Rockingham, in this case, shall be requested but not be required. So it is the request of Principal Hardy that her daughter be allowed to finish 6th grade here. And within our policy,
Yes, I think, right, it's in our policy, right?
No,
Great.
no decision needed, right?
so I think we should just put it in the form of a motion.
Okay.
I think, yeah.
Go ahead,
You didn't
you do
even
it.
try, so moved.
Team just did it.
Oh, Charlie had to
Charlie
figure it
passed
out
it out
first.
to me, he passed it to me, so I could do it.
But Leah,
So moved, he just was, they were laughing.
all right. So Nicole gets to decide which one?
I'll go with team.
Yeah.
So there's a motion on the floor that the request for a student, Marlo Hardy, to be able to complete her 6th grade year here would be approved, given that it is consistent with our policy and she is the daughter of the school principal. So, any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
You don't
Thank
lose
you.
your, what did she play? French horn?
French horn.
You can't lose the French horn
She's
player.
the only, really carrying that band.
Yeah.
A question, should we, what would be the process for requesting Rockingham to pay that tuition? Or should we not?
Do you want us to all call them individually?
No.
as board members?
Yeah.
I think Cheryl, maybe we can draft just a letter,
Okay,
you know, that I can present to them
all right,
and, you know, or something of that nature and just let them know.
and include our policy,
Yep.
because they don't have one that's similar, and just, so let's do that, send them a letter and.
Or the policy.
Yep, and include the policy, so that's great. Well, apologies for skipping past us.
Well,
Thank you
thank you.
Yeah,
Thank you so much.
well, and, you know, again, this goes back to, I think it was Margie and Charlie and Tina, all who really dove
Yeah, they did
into
it.
creating the policy for us to, when we first submitted it for public review last December and voted on it in February. So I'm glad we had it to be able to refer to today. Okay. So all of these projects, the construction, the capital improvements, and the outdoor learning, including students with various needs, trying to accommodate that. Again, I looked through everything that's in the list today. Maybe there are a couple of things. I think we need, the board needs a formal request from you, Liz.
Okay.
An itemized request that would show us what the items are and what the total is, so that we can approve them on kind of a block basis, so it's not one at a time. The reason for asking the board to do it is that it's outside of the budget, and that these are reserve funds that the board asked the community to vote for. So in a discussion with Andy and Jim Pacina, who Andy talked with, we think this additional structure is needed for accountability around it. And you've already done so much of the work, but just make a formal request for each of them, if that makes sense. Yeah,
I have a quick question.
several questions, it looks like.
Go ahead, comments, but that's,
All right.
I just wanted to check, I see Janelle pretty much every day these days now, but I've been urging her to get involved in whatever the discussion is about enhancements of West. I hope that, is that happening? Is
She
being
actually
included?
said that just this afternoon to me. She said, Charlie has been, asking me about this. And she actually had our 6th graders propose enhancements to the West playground and what they would think would be most useful, most beneficial for that space. And they have some really wonderful ideas. So she's gonna send them my way and I will put them back into the spreadsheet.
Sarah Carlisle also had a few suggestions.
Okay, do you want to send me her info?
Yes.
That'd be great.
I just wonder if when things like, if on the spreadsheet, it can just be like color coded if things have been, the things that have been approved, and that way we can clearly see, because then I'm sure stuff is gonna be added to that as time goes on.
Yeah. Great point.
You've got things in there, it says approved, or it says pending board
Yeah,
approval.
there's things that we have people, we have contractors like lined up.
Right.
So those will probably be our first ones that we'll do. And then, yes, I will definitely color code. That's a great point.
And formalize the request to us so that we can do it in a piecemeal. And then, thinking about it too, like we have with the 10 and 15-year kind of capital improvements or maintenance, it's really repairs and that we need. I think if you can ask the teachers to be thinking about durability and lifespan of some of the things that we're spending time on, I don't mean to slow you down now, but we need to be thinking about how long the things will last that we're paying for.
The only comment I want to make is like, there are things that obviously they're the unforeseen, and we've talked about some of them, but, you know, Steve Horton sent me an email. There's something with the Efficiency Vermont and there might be some unforeseen costs. He wanted to speak to me, so I haven't had a chance to speak to him yet. But those might be things to come back and say, we might need to tap into these reserves a little bit because this cost is going to be higher than even what the grant is covering or something of that nature, so.
It's regarding the data.
Yes, yeah. So I mean, it's a little complex, but he just wanted to chat on some ideas. So those are the kind of things I anticipate more on top of, which may come through.
I very much liked him, by the way, and I think it's a really good move to hire him and use him. Thank you.
No, thank you. I mean, he's been a savior for us, I believe, so.
Yeah.
Really, it's nice, again, when you put the right people and get the right people and they can tell you what to do and then
Yes.
you can see again, you see the traction done,
Yes.
it's great, so.
Yeah, on that note, I am wondering if we did originally talk about having 2 board meetings a month because of all the capital stuff, but he's got so much, I feel like he's taking care of a lot of it. I wonder if we can get it, instead of having 2, we can move down to 1. I was wondering if instead of having 2 board meetings a month, we could move down to 1 because Steve Horton is, his name reminds me of that, Tim Hortons. Yeah. So Steve Horton, sorry, and has got a lot of it under control, and there's not a lot that we can actually do. So having the 2 meetings a month seems excessive when we can probably get it done in 1 meeting a month. I know Andy wants to come twice a month.
I wasn't able to make it.
No, I don't think you have to come.
No, I'm
to the
just
second
kidding, I'm just saying, really.
one. Well, I wouldn't mind having one more extra one before we sign up on that.
Before we sign up on what?
I'm going to 1 a month.
Oh.
Because we haven't really have we got time for much of it tonight?
I don't know what we can talk about tonight, because that's the thing, I don't know what is,
Well, we said we would produce an RFP draft,
Yes.
which Margie or somebody started, and
Yeah,
I
I
added
started
to.
it, I just threw in a few things last week, but I don't think we worked on it, have we?
So, well, I've added a couple of things to it, but I wondered, is Liz in that document or not? So
I can
please,
share it with her right now.
so please add Liz, and then Steve said that he would give us help with the RFP, this is only for the solar. But, so I think, Andy, if this makes sense to you, you've authorized Liz to contact Steve directly. If she could take what the team has put together in the draft RFP and send it to him and ask him what he would add to it so that we actually have an RFP that can go out.
Yep, that, I think given his role, that's what he does, bless you, does well, bless you. Looking at what the state, like, you know, there's certain, you know, you gotta have an I here and a T here and all that, and if you don't, then the whole thing doesn't work. And so
Right.
I think that using him for that expertise would be smart.
He volunteered to help with that. He said that was a part of his role. We need them, Liz, also to send him the electrical bills for the year. And Jim has already assembled that. I think you've got it as well.
Okay.
But he needs the specifications. I think the description that Charlie and Margie maybe wrote, or maybe you did, team, is a great start, but it doesn't have everything in it. And then he can take a look at that and then come back to us with a draft RFP. A draft request for proposals. And then I think that you don't have a lot of things that you need to spend money on between now and July 1, the new budget year. So, and these are reserve funds, again, that we're mostly using for some of these projects. So we have time, even though we feel a sense of urgency. It's that combination. I think the request for proposals and then getting the teachers to formalize what they actually want to purchase.
Yeah.
And we could vote on that in the new budget year, because we should leave the business office alone for the next few weeks.
Thank you. The only thing I would add, I hear what you're saying about the two, but I'm wondering if after our conversation with Brittany from NBF, which is the architecture with the entrance, maybe, I don't know where she will be after Liz has kind of looked at, and they've had some proposals back and forth. Before we move any further and go into what we would call elevation drawings and things of that nature, want to bring it to the board for, your blessing on moving forward. So that would be appropriate in one of those construction ones to talk about that, to have Brittany come and actually present the drawings and talk about what, her vision is and stuff of that nature, and the collaboration that Liz has already had with her. So that would be one piece. The only other piece that I have is, I sent you all the structural analysis of the roofs. And because I wasn't, did Steve talk about the roofs at the last time and the insulation? That was a,
Seem
okay.
not to be concerned.
Okay, and that, we got approval, we got the blessing from the fire marshal to go ahead with the R20 as opposed to the R40 insulation piece. And so that just came through from Steve today to me,
Was that
so.
for both buildings? I thought that it just said west-west, so I wasn't sure if it.
No, it has to do with your structure of your southeast
Okay.
over here also, because when we looked at it, or when he had someone look at it, because of the intricacy of all the different roofs coming together, you'd have to go in and do a lot of structural piece, and then if you have to upgrade to the R40, and then if you're talking solar panel, it was getting, you were gonna be putting a lot of money in for very little return. And so I did say to him, let's just move forward with trying to get approval for the R20, because the cost benefit over the next 10 years wasn't gonna pan out, it wasn't gonna save you any money, it was gonna probably cost you more money. So I just wanna make sure that, I wasn't sure if that was fully covered, so.
Did we hear anything more about the pavilion getting paid for by
There was a guy,
donated?
yeah.
Yeah. Steve was gonna he'd heard a rumor, I think it's part of the stuff you know about, but we need to have that information.
I haven't had a chance, he came in the office today and I was in a meeting and he dropped some things off, so I haven't had a chance to talk with Steve since he even last spoke with you all, so.
Okay.
So I'll need to sit down with him and be able to, before I can answer that, so.
So the answer is no, but I think we need a request for proposals for the pavilion. I think it's, even though it's under 40,000 probably, it's still significant, and I'd like to see some options for us.
Well, if it's getting donated.
That's only, well, if that is the case.
Right.
That would be great. That would be great. I'm sorry, go ahead.
So at some point, is it Robert time to ask a question about this roof analysis?
Sure, go ahead.
So it says that if you put R20, whatever, add 6, the upshot seems to be at least 8 PS, pounds per square foot for the solar panel load. Is that enough? What am I reading from this?
So my conversation with Steve was that if you went with the concern over the classroom roofs is, and I haven't delved through that in great detail, and I'm not even gonna pretend to fully, I'd wanna talk to him first to be able to answer your question.
Okay.
Does that mean you can still put solar panels on there with R20? I think, is that the question you're asking me? Is that what it says?
Yeah, it says gymnasium roof. There are 14.
So the gymnasium roof is perfectly fine, you can throw solar arrays up there, you have no problem. There was concerns about the classroom roofs and potentially putting solar arrays on there because of the way they all kind of merge together. But I wanna sit down and have Steve tell me that, so I can speak with some truth to that. So, but that's my recollection of that, what that was. So,
So we don't quite know what the punchline of this is yet.
Well, the punchline is, you're good to go with the gymnasium roof.
Okay?
The conversation I had with Steve is, even if you went 100% solar on, you know, and everything, the return on the investment and all that stuff, like, I don't know if the dollars are there in the long run, is what he was trying to say. Like, so you're gonna have to do structural pieces on your roofs here to put solar panels on the roof even. And so by the time you do all that structural piece and then put your solar panels on there, you're not going to be saving any money. Your carbon footprint is going to be larger.
This is, perhaps, but this is the thing we don't yet know.
That's correct.
Yeah, because he told us he wasn't sure.
So that's where I would have to go back to him, but when we briefly talked about it, when we were looking at the plans, and Liz, were you still there for that piece, or did you leave at that
I
point?
think I left it
Okay,
that way.
so I'll have to go back to him, but he was very cautious, if not saying don't do it, because the cost you're gonna spend to do the structure, just to put solar panels on, to say that if the purpose, if that's part of it, what's the purpose of putting the solar panels and going and having 100% of your power, because 100% of your power will not be coming from solar.
No, that's the point. But
And-
so the
and
question
so-
is that the case or is it not the case? It's what we've got to find out.
Yeah, he didn't say anything
We don't know
like
yet.
that to us.
Right.
No,
Yeah.
If that's the case, then I agree with you, but so we just want to know, yes or no, is it true that we would have to enhance the roof?
You would have to enhance the roof to put solar
We
panels.
know that for sure?
That is what he told me the other day.
Oh, is that?
How
is
did
that
he
incorporated
determine
in?
that? Did someone else come? He told us, because solar panels don't actually weigh very much.
It's because you have to increase,
I think if you
you
did,
have to increase the insulation if you put with the solar panels. So you've got a cost benefit piece here. So I'll have to go back to him and get a specific
Okay.
for that, but it,
So may I ask a question here? If you don't have solar panels, how are you going to heat that area?
it's regular heat,
With regular meaning,
wood chip boiler.
yeah, wood chip oil.
Yeah, for now, the
So-
solar is not taking over heating, it's taking over electricity.
So your heating is still gonna be wood chip, it's not solar. Your solar was for electricity.
Yes, that I understand. So I guess what I'm wanting to say is that, anyway, we'll wait to hear
Yeah.
more from him.
Yeah.
That's what I'm
And,
on.
I'm not sure you're current, Andy.
Yeah.
In that, one of the things that Steve got interested in was the idea of me even going to the parking lot with solar. And Jeff Potter wasn't clear that we're trying to get 100% of our electricity covered, that we're not just talking about the gymnasium roof. And when Steve heard all of this discussion, he did not raise what you're saying to us as cautions or skepticism. So let's just all
Yeah.
on the same
Yeah.
page,
yeah.
I think. But anyway, you're going to be in touch
Yes.
with Steve about getting us an RFP.
Mhm.
That's great. You're going to bring us back kind of the detailed list
yeah,
for approval. And I think we're okay to do that after July 1 for most things. But you take a
Yeah.
look if there's anything that needs to be moved forward.
yeah, I mean, I can't imagine that we could even schedule anyone before that anyway.
Right,
even if
exactly.
it was approved, so
Exactly.
I'm comfortable with waiting until after July 1.
So was just trying to, forgive me for looking at my phone, I was trying to figure out the next meeting date. If we had one, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, date and time of next meeting. But it would be June 15th, which is a Thursday. And I actually am out of town. And it's a busy time of year. And I would actually propose that we reconsider 2 meetings a month beginning in July, but that we have our next full meeting on July 6th, after the school year is done.
So moved.
All right, that's my proposal. All right, there's a motion on the floor that we not meet on June 15th.
Discussion?
Discussion?
Sounds great to me.
All right, all those in favor?
Aye.
All right, so that's what we'll do. All right, let's,
So it is July 6th.
yeah, July 6th is our next regular meeting, and we'll try to have more of this information. It'll be a new budget year. We're trying not to stress the business office or anybody else in the next few weeks. Everybody should try to come to the 6th grade event, right? Tell us that date again.
14th. The 14th.
And then I will with that. Okay, everybody else go.
6 o'clock or 6:30?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock, great, yeah.
6th grade success night. And I believe the 15th is also the high school graduation.
Right.
Oh,
Yeah.
Well, what date is that?
The 15th.
15th.
15th is Thursday, yeah.
I love
All right, everybody, director's comments. Team?
No, wrapping up the end of the school year. Good luck and thank you to everybody.
Okay, Margie?
It was such a good concert. All the little soloists were great. That was so fun. And it's really impressive what you guys are doing here. I also really liked at our last meeting having Mandy and Kelly here telling us about stuff. That was really cool.
Yeah.
I'm totally impressed.
Great meeting, thank you, everybody. Nothing specific to say? Thanks, Liz. Thanks,
Thank
Mandy.
you, and Liz, thank you so much for, the articulation of your reports has always been inspirational for me, frankly. And I'm looking forward to the 6th grade graduation. Last year was so much fun, so. that'd be good.
Would you, Liz, send us Mandy's and Kelly's slides?
Sure.
Oh,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah, so we can have that for reference as well.
Yeah.
And as Karen just thanked Liz for the inspiration, I want to thank each of you board members for your dedication and curiosity and tenacity and all those other good things. And certainly Nicole and Andy, thank you for being here, and Jim as well. All right, motion to adjourn?
We didn't hear from Pete. We didn't hear from Pete.
No, I did, I went first, so
Oh, right,
moved.
sorry.
Motion to adjourn, moved.
All right,
Are you voting or?
I called for a motion to adjourn,
Oh,
but no
motion.
motion.
I will say a motion to adjourn.
Oh, my goodness. All right, thanks, everyone. And good night, Fat TV.
This meeting was recorded by Falls Area Community Television, located at 1 Hospital Court, Bellows Falls, Vermont. If you would like a copy of the meeting, our phone number is 802-463-1613, or email us at fact810@gmail.com. Falls Area Community TV, keeping government honest.